Now everybody do this. Everybody do this. And everybody do this. If you've done this properly, you can do this. There you go. Okay, right back up. You're not participating, sir. You think this is like TV? It's not. I can see you too. Now do this with your pinkies. Do this with your thumbs. Now at the count of 3, without letting go, do this. 1, 2, 3. Any questions so far? Well, if you don't have any questions, I do. You see, as a magician, my mind is very keenly in tune with the mysteries that surround us all. In fact, for you David Letterman fans, I have compiled today's top 10 list in the category Great Unanswered Questions of our day. Number 10. Where do Walmart employees go when you need assistance? Number 9. Why do kamikaze pilots wear helmets? Number 8. Why do they call hemorrhoids hemorrhoids when they could be called asteroids? I think I just found the level of the crowd. Number 7. Were the Dark Ages caused by Y1K? Explain it to your neighbors, I'll wait. It was funnier 13 years ago. Number 6. Why do people who can barely walk always wear jogging suits? You're a cold-hearted bunch. Number 5. Does a beer belly count as six-pack abs? Number 4. Is a vegetarian allowed to eat animal crackers? Number 3. Why do they put artificial lemon in lemonade and real lemon in dishwashing detergent? Number 2. When a farmer dumps his girlfriend, does he send her a John Deere letter? Way up. Way up. It was much louder before. Yeah. And finally, the number 1 unanswered question of our day. When blondes have more fun, do they know it? That's an easy question. Well, this morning through the art of illusion, we will attempt to answer a question. Just turn down the mic. Leave the master up. That's good. Right there. I'm just kidding. Okay. I'm screwing with you, Stephen. Okay. Well, this morning through the art of illusion, we will attempt to answer a much more important question. It is this. How can you so galvanize yourselves to action, along with your colleagues, the students, their parents, and this entire community, that you will go out in the next month or 2 or 6 or 12 or 24 and achieve educational objectives that up until now you have deemed impossible. Now, my name is Billy Riggs, and I'm not just an illusionist. I am, much more importantly, what I call a disillusionist, which means I don't get nearly as excited about performing my illusions as I do about getting into your heads and exposing your illusions, damaging psychological illusions, faulty perceptions of the world and your place in it that will harden the glass ceilings in your head and form self-imposed barriers to success through which you cannot break. It is only when you get yourself disillusioned then you discover all of the magic that is the profession of teaching. But your life in a similar fashion is moved by a host of invisible forces. Your beliefs, your assumptions, your biases, your defense mechanisms. But at the top of that list, I would have to place your beliefs. I want to share with you today the 4 beliefs of a remarkably effective educator. The first is that he or she believes passionately in the purpose for education, in the purpose for the school system. The story goes that the mayor of a large city was being driven back to work after a luncheon speech when the limo pulled up to a traffic light and came to a stop. The mayor glanced out the window and saw 2 city employees hard at work. One of them dug a hole, the other came right behind him and filled it in. The mayor thought this was odd, but before he could say anything, the light changed and the limo pulled away. Yet as they traveled, the mayor saw on both sides of the highway, for the next 2 miles, every 50 feet, there was an identical filled-in hole. By the time he arrived at City Hall, the mayor was livid at this obvious waste of the taxpayers' money, so he dispatched an aide to find out what was going on. 2 hours later, the aide returned and said, "Mayor, it's nothing to worry about. Usually that's a 3-man crew. But the third guy's on vacation this week, and he's the one that plants the trees." Don't turn on me now, I just started. There are few things in life so sad as going through the motions of doing your job with no higher purpose in mind. And yet that is what hundreds of millions of people do every single day of their working lives. They go off to their workplace and they tick off all of the demands required of their job description, and then they return home having no higher purpose in mind than just rolling over and paying the bills. But you dare not allow that to happen to you. I hope that you figured out by now that when you work for the school system, you don't have the luxury of going to work the way an accountant at Microsoft or an engineer at Motorola or a busboy at Applebee's might. This cannot be just a job for you. It's too important for that. This should not be even merely a career for you. It's too critical even for that. This is a calling. This is a mission. This should be for you a magnificent obsession for transforming the lives of students. Now, it's been a good thing these last many years, as my son has been wending his way through elementary school, that I was not home much during the month of August. Because my home was not a very pleasant place to be. My wife was a nervous wreck, and her anxiety level was increasing and would reach its crescendo on a Thursday afternoon in the middle of August at 4 p.m., which was circled on her calendar, because it was on that Thursday afternoon at 4 p.m. that our son's elementary school would post his teacher assignment for the upcoming school year. And all summer long, we had been hoping against hope that our little boy would get assigned to one particular teacher. Because there was something about that teacher's reputation that preceded her. Every year she manages to take every student, brush away the ashes, find a few glowing embers, and then begin to blow softly on them until they erupt into an inferno of a desire for learning. But just to be candid, which I can because I'm leaving in a couple of hours, all summer long we had been praying that our boy would not get stuck with one particular teacher in each grade. Even the atheists in our neighborhood went to church all summer long just to hedge their bets. Because that teacher's reputation had preceded her as well. Somehow she manages to do it every year. She finds a way to brush away the ashes in the brain of every student, find the 3 glowing embers, and pour water all over them. What is the difference between those 2 teachers? Well, I'm sure there are a lot of them, but at the core, I think it's why that teacher goes to work in the morning. That teacher that you want your kid or your grandkid being taught by, let me tell you why he or she goes to work every morning. They love kids. And they believe at the core of their soul, with every fiber of their being, that they are making a profound and a meaningful, positive difference in the lives of their students. Now, that teacher that you don't want your kid anywhere near, let me tell you why he or she goes to work in the morning. They need health insurance, or a pension plan, or they've got 3 years till retirement and they're hanging on for dear life. Let me ask you a question. Why do you go to work in the morning? Now, because I'm magic, I can read your minds. There are 63 people in the room right now thinking some version of Mr. Fancy Pants motivational speaker. We're not all teachers, you know. That doesn't matter. Regardless of your job description, you still have to do it because you love the kids. And you believe in the dream. You're committed to the purpose. Even if you're in accounting, or you're just sitting behind the desk pushing paper, or you're calling parents of tardy students, that's okay. You still do it because you believe in the dream. You're a part of the organization that makes a difference in the lives of kids. Let me ask you a question. Is there a fire burning in your belly to transform the lives of the students? Does it burn so brightly that it keeps you awake nights? And when you finally fall asleep, you find yourself dreaming about it. And when you wake up in the morning, is it one of the first thoughts on your mind? And as you go about your day, you find yourself in your free time scheming and dreaming about ways to do it better, to reach more kids, to reach different kids, to reach the same kids at a deeper level. If you don't have that passion, you can never be as effective in the classroom as you would otherwise be. Let me ask you a question. Do you have a passion for learning yourself? You will never give your students a disease that you don't already have. You must never allow yourself to forget why you do what you do. There was once a monk who was overseeing a church building project. He went out to the construction site to see how progress was coming, and while there, he saw 4 men chipping stones. He asked the first, "My son, what are you doing?" The man scowled. He said, "Father, I'm chipping stones." He asked the second, "My son, what are you doing?" The man matter-of-factly said, "Father, I'm building a wall." He approached the third. He said, "My son, what are you doing?" The man smiled. He said, "Father, I'm erecting a cathedral." He approached the fourth. He said, "My son, what are you doing?" The man's face lit up with all of the glory of heaven. He positively beamed as he said, "Father, I'm advancing the kingdom of God on earth, one stone at a time." I believe that it is your solemn duty as an employee of the school system to ruthlessly discipline yourself each and every day that you come to work to give that 4th level of an answer. I wonder if 6 months from now I was to walk up to one of your teachers and ask you casually what you're doing, how would you reply? "I'm making out one more homework assignment for the students to completely ignore." Or would you say, "I'm making sure that the students of Henderson County one day go to college instead of jail. I'm making sure that they one day live in houses instead of under bridges. That they drive reliable cars instead of death traps. That they grow up knowing pride and self-esteem their whole lives instead of shame. That they never once as an adult have to ask anybody if they want fries with that. I'm transforming the world one ignored homework assignment at a time." Don't forget why you do what you do. Several years ago, I was invited to do the opening convocation on the campus of Orange County Community College in Los Angeles, California. And at the end of the program, I was packing up to go back to the airport when an elderly woman made her way up on the stage and introduced herself. We'll call her Mrs. Smith. She said, "Would you mind if I told you about my most rewarding experience as an educator?" I said, "I'd be delighted to hear." She explained how for more than 30 years she had taught math at the high school level in the public schools of Los Angeles, and then retired and become an adjunct professor at the college. She said, way back in about 1970, give or take, there was a junior in my math class named David. He sat in the back of the class and didn't participate much. He was kind of sullen and somber. He had long hair at a time when that was considered a sign of rebellion. He wore an earring in an era when that was completely unheard of among males, and he wasn't doing very well in school. She said, one day I got a call from David's dad, and he said, "Mrs. Smith, can you please do something for our boy David? He's got a good heart and a good mind, but unless somebody intervenes, that kid is never going to graduate from high school." She said, "I'll see what I can do." She said one day she pulled David aside and she said, "David, do you prefer to work with your hands or with people more?" He said, "With my hands." She said, "If you'd like to make a little extra money, I've got a garden in my backyard and I'll pay you to come help me work in it." So she said every now and then, after school, David would come over to her house for the next couple of years, work in her garden, and as he did so, she would follow him around in a lawn chair and just listen to the boy rant about how much he hated life, and how much he hated school, and how much he hated his parents, especially his dad. And she said eventually, to make a long story short, David cobbled together enough credits to earn his diploma on time. And she said, "I'll never forget how at the graduation ceremony, David's dad came up and gave me a bear hug and said, 'Mrs. Smith, thank you from the bottom of our hearts. If it weren't for you, David never would have graduated from high school.'" She said, "For more than 3 decades, I treasured that moment in my heart as one of those little perks that we educators get way too seldom in this job." But then she said, "Now let me tell you the epilogue." She said, "Not long ago, I got another call from David's dad, now an elderly man. And he said, Mrs. Smith, you may not remember us, but we've never forgotten you. You helped our son David graduate from high school long ago, and he's always been grateful for the contribution you made to his life. He turns 50 very soon, and he specifically asked us to invite you and encourage you to come to his birthday party. She said she was completely flummoxed and flabbergasted and taken aback, and she said, well, of course I remember David. I'd love to come to his birthday party. Whatever became of David? The father said, you don't know. He works at USC Hospital as the chief of surgery. Now here's a boy who, on the one hand, never would have gotten out of high school but for one woman's love, who now, on the other hand, is the chief of surgery at one of the biggest hospitals in one of the biggest cities on earth, because of one woman's intervention, one teacher. And then Mrs. Smith said, you know what really gets me? I said, what? She said, if I had never gotten that second phone call, I would have gone to my grave never having any idea the impact I made on David's life. Listen carefully. You may never get that first phone call because of your job description. Second phone call. Because of your job description, some of you will never get the first phone call. But you must never allow yourself to forget for a moment that there are many Davids out there. And there are more to be made this year in Henderson County. And that's why you go to work in the morning. You dare not do this job just for a paycheck. It's too important for that. Now, folks, I know that you're a professional. You earn your paycheck, by all means, cash it. Pay your bills. Put aside a little for retirement. Take a nice vacation every now and then. You've earned it, you deserve it. But don't do it for that. Do it to make more Davids. Now, people are always asking me how I got started as a magician. I will never forget that momentous day when the host of my favorite TV show literally set the course for my life by teaching the viewers a simple magic trick. What I'd like to do is reenact that day for you so that you can enjoy it along with me. In order to do this, I will need to borrow something from the audience, not a person, so don't get nervous. I actually need to borrow a woman's, are you volunteering? A woman's pocketbook. That might work. Can you think of anyone in the entire room who might be willing to allow me to borrow her purse? Anyone. Anyone. Can I take a look inside of it? You know, most restaurants will wrap that salad. That's a little too heavy. A little full. Okay, would you mind if I borrow your purse?
No, purse.
What is it? It's okay, it's God's will. Can I borrow it? Where are you from? Okay, everybody, pass your wallets this way. Trust me, I'm a magician. Is it okay if they see the inside of it? The host of my favorite TV show said we were to get our mom's favorite handbag with which he would teach us to do a simple magic trick. This briefcase will represent my mother's favorite purse when I was a boy. Several years ago, I wrote to the network and told them how that show changed my life. They were nice enough to send me a copy of it. I don't have a video, so use your imagination as you hear the audio track only of the show that changed my life as a little boy. It's a beautiful day, beautiful day for a neighbor. Would you be mine? Could you be mine? It's a neighborly day, neighborly day for a reason. Would you be mine? Could you be mine? I always wanted to have a neighbor just like me. Always wanted to live in a neighborhood with me. So let's make the most of this beautiful day. Since we're together, I shall say, my neighbor. Please won't you be my neighbor?
going to learn a magic trick. We're going to make a bandana disappear. Can you say bandana? Bandana. Sure, I knew you could. First, you'll need to take out a bandana. Now, fold the bandana in half. That's right. Fold it in half. Now, fold it one more time. Now, secretly take the folded bandana and hide it in your left hand. Be sure to keep your hand in a natural position. This is known as palming. Now that you've perfected palming, we're ready to begin. Open up the folded bandana. Greet the audience by waving it up and down. To prove that it's a real bandana, let a member of the audience wipe his face with it. Or you can let someone blow his nose in it. Now, take out your mother's favorite handbag. Place the bandana in the handbag. Now, close the handbag firmly around the bandana. What the audience doesn't know, neighbor, is that you never put the bandana in the handbag at all. That's right. You kept it hidden in your left hand. Remember palming? Sure, I knew you would. Remember to keep your hand in a natural position. Now, make a magical gesture over the handbag. And with a grand flourish, fling the handbag open and wait for your well-deserved response.
Okay, now some of you are wondering how I did that. The rest of you are wondering why I did that. It's an object lesson to illustrate a very important point, and that is that you and I have something in common. We all became illusionists as very small children. Psychologists tell us that the faulty perceptions of the world that we all drag with us through adult life cripple our creativity, paralyze our potential, limit our sales, impede our progress, and drain our lives of joy were generally formed in our minds by about the age of 6. The difference between my illusions and yours is that I perform mine to fool you, but the illusions we carry in our heads deceive no one but ourselves. When I was a little boy, one day I innocently left several unwrapped Hershey Kisses on the dashboard of my mother's car on a hot summer day. We came back an hour or two later to find they had melted all down the dashboard and into the carpet. I have a question for you. What was it about my mother's car that made the chocolate balls melt? What?
It was black, dark car, hot.
It's not a trick question. It's okay. Wrong answer. We have some nice parting gifts for you. It's a lifetime supply of Lee press-on nails. Tell us about them, Johnny. No. I'm not. It's not the heat. I'm going to prove it to you. Let's suppose that instead of heating some lumps of chocolate to 140 degrees for 1 hour, we instead took some lumps of clay, put them in a kiln, and heated them to 2,000 degrees for 12 hours. What would happen to them? It would harden. Don't ever allow yourself to believe that it is the heat applied to you by the students or their parents or your workload that causes you to melt. Heat can never do that. The only thing heat can do is reveal the stuff of which you were made. And that's great news. Do you know why? Because unlike the lumps of chocolate and the lumps of clay, you and I as human beings have the high privilege and the incontrovertible right of choosing the stuff of which we are made. We do that every single day of our lives by exercising our right as people to choose our attitude. If you're going to be a remarkably effective educator, you need to believe passionately in the purpose of education. Secondly, you need to believe powerfully in a positive attitude. The influence of a positive attitude. And despite the fact that you've heard your whole life how important it is that you maintain a PMA, some of you still woke up this morning with your brain groping for any excuse to be negative. What's yours? Is money a little tight around your place? Have you been through a nasty breakup? Do you find certain parts of your job unpleasant? Are you too tired to go on? Getting strange vibes from your neighbors? Are you overloaded today? Do you worry that your kid will grow up to be a rapper? Maybe you just hate your name. This is the Montessori School of Comedy. You're each allowed to catch on to the jokes at your own pace. Are you annoyed by life's little inconveniences? Do you worry that the educational system may be failing our children? Are some of your students just plain lazy? Catching up with you. Do other people not respect you? Well, regardless of the excuse you gave yourself for getting up on the wrong side of the bed this morning, I know what the problem was. You woke up with your head in the wrong place. Job to help you get your head in the right place. Let me tell you what I believe may be the most important question you ever answer. It is this: is the glass half full or half empty? And here's the answer: it's up to you. To me, that is the most wonderful fact of this life. That no one on this planet but you can answer this question for you, and the way that you choose to answer will determine more than almost any other factor in life how happy and successful you become. It's the great equalizer of life. It would be horribly unfair if the factor that determined your satisfaction level in life was your ability to think like Albert Einstein, jump like Michael Jordan, sing like Madonna. What happens if you come into the world jumping like Albert Einstein, singing like Michael Jordan, thinking like Madonna? Would you be doomed to a miserable life? No, because you still get to answer this question for you, but listen carefully. It is the eternal law of life that if you choose to get up every day with your head in the wrong place and say, my glass is half empty, it will get emptier. The consequence of a negative attitude is that you'll attract bad things and bad people to yourself. And over the course of your lifetime, drain your glass to the dregs of all of the joy that you might otherwise have known. And in your more introspective moments, you'll have to acknowledge that you did it to yourself as a direct consequence of a bad attitude. And you'll find a very troubling process at work in your life. Your glass will get smaller. Your ability to know joy will slowly diminish as day by day, week by week, month by month, year by year, and decade by decade, you find yourself paying the compounded interest on a life lived with a sour, negative outlook. But the converse is also true. If you choose to get up every day with your head in the right place and say, my glass is half full, it will get fuller. By virtue of a fabulous attitude, you'll attract good things and good people to yourself, and over the course of your lifetime, you will fill your glass to overflowing. with all of the joy that life can contain. And you'll find a wonderful process at work in your life. Your glass will grow larger. Okay, last time. This is your break. They don't have that commercial in Kentucky. This is your brain on a bad attitude. And this is your brain on a good one. Let one negative thought creep into your mind and find a home there, and the process will begin all over again. Let it find fertile soil and send deep roots into your psyche, and your glass will drain once more. Every time it starts to fade away, be sure to nurse your grudge and fan it back into flames and stay bitter. There's only one thing you can do in this life to make your glass stop draining. It's to get up with your head in the right place. Say, my glass is half full. So you're left with life's most important question. Is the glass half full or half empty? And the answer is up to you. I'd like to continue now with a card trick. I need somebody down near the front. Who will help me out? Okay? Oh, that's fine. What's your name? Rebecca. Rebecca, please stand up right where you are. Rebecca, I'm going to throw you these cards. I want you to catch them. If you drop them, they're hard to find. Are you ready? Good snap. Rebecca, would you please remove the rubber bands from around the deck? Now take the deck out of the box. You didn't even know they were in a box, did you? Yes, put the deck down on the chair behind you. So, what did you put down? Okay, I'm sorry, put the box down. Yeah, work with it. Okay, now, what I'd like you to do, please, is shuffle the cards thoroughly, Rebecca. Just don't get them out of order. And now, have the lady next to you please pick a card. Spread them out in a nice brief man, stand up right where you are. What is your name? Sorry?
Addie.
Addie, would you please pick a card? Don't let me see it. Please show your card to everyone in the room except for me. Now, I want you, Addie, to place it back in the deck, but not yet. I want you to first turn it face up so it's the only backwards card in the deck. Rebecca, please shuffle the cards one more time. Put them back in the box. Put the rubber band back. And in a moment, you will throw them back to me. But I'm going to tell you what's going to happen. Most magicians rely on the element of surprise, but this is the world's greatest card trick. Between Rebecca and me, in midair, the deck will materialize. Throw me the cards. Look! Don't get mad, it's the only way I know how. Oh, you do not believe this is the same deck. There is only one way to prove that this is the same deck, and that is that Addie, you selected a card, didn't you? Addie, wouldn't it be amazing if we were to open this box and find in it a deck of cards with only one card face down, and it just happened to be the card that you selected? Would that blow your mind, Addie? They said it wouldn't take much. Addie! Just kidding. Addie, please stand up right where you are. Let your mind go blank. That was fast. Addie, would you please, in your best voice, shout the card that you selected? A king of hearts? Wrong. I'm going to open this deck. No funny business. I'm going to fan these cards out. And I want you to tell me if you see any cards face down in this deck.
Yes.
Right here. What was your card, Addie?
King of Hearts.
Say it loudly.
King of Hearts.
King of Hearts. Thank you, Addie. you 20 bucks, I promise you. What you just saw is a trick done with an invisible deck of cards, and that's the inherent problem with the illusions that we carry in our heads. They're by nature invisible, and yet they affect every single aspect of our lives. Let me tell you what I believe may be the most universal and damaging illusion of life. It is this, that I just don't have what it takes to achieve greatness, that I just can't do it. And that illusion is usually created in the head of a kid, and it tends to linger throughout life, or at least its effects do, which is why what you do is so crucial. You have to help erase that in the children and in the students. So the third belief of a remarkably effective educator is that they believe passionately in the pupils. There was a fascinating study run in San Francisco, California in 1964. A Harvard sociologist named Robert Rosenthal decided to try an experiment in something known as the Pygmalion principle. Pygmalion, you'll remember, was the man in the Greek myth who carved a statue of a beautiful woman, and she was so lovely that he fell in love with her, and she responded to his love and warmth by becoming real, and they lived happily ever after. Now, the myth is, of course, just that. It's a fairy tale. It's nonsense. But the Pygmalion principle is anything but. He selected one elementary school district in San Francisco because he deemed it to be socioeconomically and ethnically diverse. On day one of classes, Robert Rosenthal and his staff gave every elementary school student in the entire district a standard IQ examination, tabulated the results, and then deliberately misled the teachers. He told the teachers what he had actually done was administer a test designed for the purpose of predicting which students were about to have an educational growth spurt, blossom, come into their own, have their best year ever, finally get it. He then randomly selected the names of several students, gave them back to the teachers, and said, according to our test results, these students are expected to blossom this year. Now, teachers, he cautioned, it is absolutely critical that you do not communicate your heightened expectations of the student to him or her in any way, verbally or non-verbally. That obviously would skew the results and invalidate the test. I don't even have to finish the story. You know what happened. At the end of the school year, he came back and gave every elementary school student in the entire district the same IQ test they had taken 9 months previous. Listen carefully. Among the students whose names had been randomly picked as ready to blossom, their IQ score was an average of 13 points higher than their peers. A few students in the first and second grades saw their IQ score shoot up 30 full points in one academic year. Do you have any idea how astonishing the difference is between an 85 IQ and a 115 IQ? An 85 IQ is probably going to relegate somebody to a minimum wage job. A 115 is ready for law school or medical school. Now, I don't know what you believe about the possibility of increasing somebody's IQ. I don't know whether their IQ went up or not, but their I try sure did. Their I believe in myself sure went up. And they tried much harder and did better. IQ is supposed to remain the same from the cradle into old age. What happened? You know what happened. Something in that teacher's eyes communicated, I believe in you. Every time she came down to little Susie or Kim, she'd wait 4 or 5 or 6 seconds longer as if to say, I know you can do it. You dig down deep, and those kids came out of their seats with motivation as never before in their entire lives because one teacher believed in them. An acquaintance of mine named Bruce graduated with a PhD and went immediately to teach on the faculty of a small college in Oregon. He tells the story of being seated behind the registration desk for the first time in his life while freshmen wandered by to sign up for his course. He was teaching the same course 3 different times in his first semester. As he was seated there, he said another faculty member walked up and said, Bruce, I don't know how you did it, but congratulations. And Bruce said, how I did what? The other faculty member said, you got Group B. Bruce said, what is Group B? The faculty member said, Group B is usually a reward that the Dean of Students reserves for a tenured professor for a job well done over many years, but he must have wanted you here pretty badly. He gave it to you in your first semester. And Bruce said, what is Group B? He said, Group B is an assembly of the best and the brightest of the freshman class. He said, every year, we take the students with the highest IQ scores, the highest SAT scores, and the highest high school grades. We bring them together in one class, and we call it Group B. You're in for the ride of your life. Just wait. Bruce said he would reserve judgment. He said his first class was made up of good, solid college students. He said, but that the moment that second group walked through the door, he could tell the difference. The light was on in their eyes. They were more alert, more eager to learn. And class 3 was made up of good college students as well. But he said as the semester wore on, he began to live for Group B. He didn't even have to work in that class. They just pulled all of their learning right out of him. He said about midterms, he was walking to a faculty meeting and ambled up alongside the dean of students who was headed for the same meeting. He said, Dean, I just want to thank you for Group B. The dean said, well, tell me about your experience. He said, well, don't get me wrong, I love my other 2 classes, just as much, but that Group B group is just amazing. They do their homework assignments. They're eager to do their collateral readings. They ask questions that are more perceptive in class. They're more eager to learn. The dean said, I don't know where you got your information, but we canceled Group B last semester. Bruce said, don't tell me this. He said, yeah, we decided it would be best if we sprinkled the best and the brightest throughout all of the classes, so there is no Group B. All of your classes are the same. Bruce said he broke out in a cold sweat, excused himself from the faculty meeting, and ran, not walked, ran back to his desk. He said he opened his grade book and found that the grades in the middle class on objective multiple choice tests were an average of 9 points higher than the other 2 classes. He took down their midterm term papers and said they were thicker by half than the other 2 classes combined. He said he put his head on his desk and he wept and said, my God, what have I been doing to my other students? People who have known me my entire life on a couple of occasions have commented that they have no idea how I came out of the family from which I emerged. Don't get me wrong, I come from a great family. I give my parents a good, solid A+ on the job they did with me and my 3 sisters. In fact, I will never forget the day when my mother sent me walking to school alone for the very first time in my life. I think I was in the 2nd grade. She sent me off with these words, Billy, never take candy from a stranger unless he offers you a ride. I'm kidding, she didn't say that. I truly have great parents, but my own dad even commented one time that he has no idea how I came out of his family. Because as far back as anyone has ever researched on both sides of my family tree, I'm the only one that ever emerged with a vision. Everybody else has been content to live their own quiet life in their own small universe, and there's nothing wrong with that. But I came out of the very same environment ready to conquer the world. And my dad asked me, where did you get that? I know you didn't get it from me. So I told him, one teacher. When I was a sophomore in college, I signed up for a required course under a professor who was brand new to campus that semester. His name, as it turned out, was Mike Henderson. He didn't have his PhD quite finished, so in class he was Mr. Henderson. Outside of class, he was Mike. Within a few weeks of sitting in Mike's class, I figured out that Mike was different from my other professors, and let me tell you how. Mike loved me. And I hate that we created a culture in which I have to qualify that statement by saying there was nothing remotely inappropriate about his love. He loved all of his students and he took a particular interest in me, and Mike believed in me. I could tell by the questions he asked me that he was expecting far greater things of me than I would ever have any reason to hope for myself. And Mike graded papers differently. Let's suppose that I were to write a paper on Abraham Lincoln and turn it in to one of my other professors. You know what they would have done? Their jobs. They were good professors. They would put a grade at the top, usually an A, B, or a C. I was a good student. They would put the red marks in the appropriate places. But if I wrote that same Lincoln paper for Mike Henderson, do you know what he would have done? He would put the same grade at the top, made the same red marks throughout, but the difference was the notes he would write at the end. I used to live for the notes Mike Henderson would scribble at the bottom of my papers. I'd get my Lincoln paper back, I'd see my grade at the top, turn immediately to the back page, where he would have scrawled something like, Billy, I think you could be another Lincoln. And I was stupid enough to believe it. And my expectations and my performance went from here to here because one person believed in me. I was a BC student my freshman year in college. I didn't get a single A that first year. In fact, I lived in awe of my friends who got A's. I just could not figure out how anybody could get an A at the college level, as hard as those classes were. But after 1 year under Mike Henderson, and I took every course he offered at that college until I graduated, just so I could be close to it, I was a straight A student through the rest of college and 2 master's degrees. What changed? Somebody believed in me, and therefore I began to believe in myself. I want you to do me a favor. I want you to think back to your Mike Henderson or your Mrs. Smith from the earlier story about David. The adult, other than your mom and dad, in your formative years who had the greatest positive influence on your life. Can you picture that person? You've got their face and their name in your mind. In one or two words, I'd like you to answer back to me this question. What quality most stands out in your mind about that person? What were they like? Just raise your hand and I'll call on you to shout. What was the person like? Who'll start us off? Yes, ma'am.
Sincere.
Sincere.
Demanding.
Demanding. What else?
Honest.
Honest. You didn't raise your hand. You're going to have to leave. I'm kidding. Is that you that said honest, ma'am?
No.
Okay, what was your?
Supportive.
Supportive.
Inspirational.
I can't hear you.
Inspirational.
Inspirational. What else? Somebody else had their hand up. Yes.
It's not one word, but I learned a lot, whatever that.
You learned a lot? Okay, what were they like?
I guess high expectations.
High expectations. Okay, great. Yes. Made you feel important. Yes.
Open-minded.
Open-minded. Unjudgmental. Okay, now we could go on another 2 or 3 minutes, but there's no point. The list of things you just said back to me is very predictable. And the things that you said are not the things that impress me. What impresses me is the things that nobody ever says. I've taken about 250,000 teachers and other educators through that little exercise over the last 15 to 18 years. And I made a prediction 20 years ago, because I'm magic and all, of things that would never be said back to me in response to that question. So far, out of a long list of adjectives and descriptors that I put on that list, I've been wrong 3 times. There were 3 words on the original list that have been said back to me once each. First of all, let me share with you the words that have never once been said back to me. Nobody's ever raised their hand and said, Billy, that guy was sharp. Coiffed, manicured, pressed. You should see the crease in that guy's pants. Nobody's ever said, Billy, she was brilliant. IQ through the roof. No one's ever said, she was rich, powerful, eloquent, celebrity, tall, gorgeous, superstar, published, famous, highly educated, erudite, certified, athletic, successful, fascinating, good-looking, well-heeled, charismatic, scholarly, high class, articulate, sexy, handsome, beautiful, or buff. By way of full disclosure, there were 3 words on the original list that have been said back to me once each. They are smart, dynamic, and talented. Do you know what this little exercise tells me? It persuades me that the qualities we place a premium on in our society for defining somebody who is highly influential really have very little to do with the matter. Think back to that list of things that you just said back to me. Is there any one of those that you cannot do or be? Can you be demanding? Can you have high expectations? Can you be non-judgmental? Can you be caring? Anybody can do these things. This is a great equalizer among educators everywhere. You know, it was about 15 or 20 years before I could get through that Mike Henderson story without choking up. Because here is a guy that didn't have to love me. I'm sure he would have rather been at home with his wife and kids, but he took time to be with me and to listen to my silly little problems and to care about me and to take an interest in me. This is the great equalizer among educators. Anybody can do any of these things. And so I'm going to issue you a challenge. First of all, when those students hit the classroom, are they coming tomorrow? Sorry. When those students come into the classroom tomorrow, make sure that your eyes communicate love to every one of them. Make sure that when you ask a question of a student, your expression doesn't say, you'll never get this in a million years, you idiot. Make sure that your eyes have expectancy in them. Make sure you believe in all of your students, but pick 1 or 2 or 3 this year that you will be their Mrs. Smith. That you will be the person that 25 years from now, they have to choke back tears as they describe the man or the woman that made a difference in their life just because they cared. I have a paper ball in my pocket. I'm going to throw it into the audience. If it comes near you, I'd like you to catch it and throw it somewhere else at random. Yes, would you please grab that ball, ma'am, and stand up. This will be the easiest thing you've ever done in your life. We're going to create a profile for a student who is new to Henderson County, just moved here. In our story, is it a boy or a girl you choose? A boy. Throw the ball somewhere else and have a seat, please. Would you do me a favor? Write a number on here lower than 40. Who has the ball? Okay, stand up. Yeah, this boy, is he an average student, below average, or above average? You choose. He's below average. You know this kid. Throw the ball somewhere else. Would you please write a number on here lower than 40? Who has the ball? Yes, stand up if you will, please. Now, this boy, who is a below average student, is he in kindergarten, pre-K, elementary school, middle school, or high school?
High school.
He's in high school. Please throw the ball this direction if you don't mind. Would you write a number on here lower than 40? Okay, that's great. Would you do me a favor, Cindy? Would you please add those 3 slips of paper together? And do it 2 or 3 times to make sure you get the same number each time. Okay. We lost the ball of paper. When you find it, please pass it to this aisle if you don't mind. Who has it? Have you found it yet? You made it disappear. Did you find it? You didn't? Okay, well, I've got a duplicate. So I'll just throw it out here random. Throw it to somebody else just for you. Okay? Oh, okay. Well, they'll think you're a setup because I just threw it right to you. Throw it somewhere else. This is not dodgeball. Did you lose that one too? You know, I've been doing this for 25 years and never had an audience lost more than one. Okay, you can stand up right where you are. Now, somebody catch this. Would you catch that? ¿Habla inglés? Okay. Great. Hold on there. I have a deck here with the 50 states of the Union printed on it. Okay? We're going to let you pick a card, and that will tell us what state this boy moved from. Okay? So pick a card, and don't let me influence your decision. Don't take hints very well, do you? Pick a card, and don't let me see what state you get. Look at the cards here. Would you please point your right index finger at the sky? And now just bring it down and touch the back of one card and leave it there. Is that the card you want? I'm not even looking, okay? You can move it one time if you like. Leave one finger on top. Is that the one you want? Leave your finger on top. Is that the one you want? Do not let me influence your decision. Is that the one? You change one time. And that's the one you want. Okay, you're not going to later say I influence you to pick this card or that I switch it, right? Okay, pull the card. Tell us. What state is this boy from? Utah. Maybe he's coming with his 16 siblings. That's revenue, baby! Okay, so we have, and there are no other Utahs in the day. Is that fair? Okay, 52 different states. 50 states along with Puerto Rico. Okay, now who has the ball? Do me a favor, would you please toss it somewhere else and come up here for just a moment? What I'd like you to do is to have a seat right here. Now, those of you in the back who have trouble seeing this, come early next time. I have my phone book from Austin, Texas. What I'd like you to do is to just thumb through and make sure that it's completely normal. That all the names are different, all the pages are different, and that sort of thing. Fair enough. Okay, let's recap. We have a boy who's a below average student in high school. He's from Utah. Cindy, what is the boy's IQ?
69.
69. Well, no wonder he's below average. Okay? That's not what I get. Why don't you try again? Why don't you do it this time, okay? Do it 2 or 3 times. It's pretty close. Anyway, would you do me a favor? Just say stop. You need a calculator? I hope you're not teaching math there. Okay. Would you just say stop? Okay, was that fair? Okay. We've got a random page. What I'd like you to do is to draw a line totally at random about this long. And just once. Don't go back and forth like that because we'll get 3 or 4 names. Hopefully we'll get 1 name. Okay, that's good? Okay, who can read fine print? Could you do me a favor? It's right there. Do you need glasses?
Yeah.
Okay, can you see? What's the name that she underlined?
Courtney,
Courtney, is that a first name or a last name?
first name.
First name, what's the last name?
Fitzgerald.
Courtney Fitzgerald. Are there any other Courtney Fitzgeralds on the page?
No.
Okay. Who has the ball? Would you do me a favor, ma'am? Would you please stand up right where you are and unroll that ball of paper to see if anything's typed on it? By the way, what was the total over there? 66. 66. Okay, that's right. Got what I did. Okay, 66. Please come here for just a moment. Step out into the aisle. Is there something typed on that piece of paper? Would you please just kind of turn around and face that way and read from the very top of the page?
Billy Riggs.
Hi.
Hi, Billy Riggs, the world's only illusionist, and sitting at my desk in Austin, Texas on Wednesday, June 5th, 2013, at 11:03 p.m. I predict that the attendees of the Henderson County Schools opening convocation in Henderson, Kentucky on Tuesday, August 6, 2013 will choose the following scenario. Your new student is a boy. He is below average student in high school. The student was born in Utah, has an IQ of 66, and his name, Courtney Fitzgerald.
Dr. Ritchie, you can keep this. One day this will be worthless. Now that freaks people out, so I'm going to tell you how I did that. For the last 25 years, before every show, I've made a prediction, and this is the first time I've gotten it right. Which brings me to the final belief of a remarkably effective educator: persistence. I knew if I kept trying, eventually, I would get one of those right. Let's suppose that you were on the chain gang in Mississippi in the 1930s. You'd been given a sledgehammer and the job of breaking a boulder. You hit it 1 time and nothing happens. 10 times, no difference. 25 times, it's exactly the same. 75 times, no visible change. 90 times, it is as though the boulder is mocking you. 99 times, you're on the verge of giving it up. But on the 100th strike, it shatters into 1,000 pieces. Here is my question. Which strike broke the rock? All 100. You can't go out there and hit it the 100th time to begin with, now can you? And if you give up on number 25 or number 75 or number 99, you never see the results. Tremendously effective educators believe at the core of their soul that if they keep hitting the rock, eventually it has to break. 6 or 7 or 8 months from now, there may be a student in one of your classes that you're on the verge of giving up on. Don't do it. Treat every student like an island. You just keep rowing and round and around and around that kid looking for a beachhead. Eventually you'll find a place to land, make an inroad, and make a difference in that kid's life. You've been a wonderful audience, and so I'm going to close today's program by teaching you to do a magic trick. I am going to teach you how to tear up a newspaper and put it back together. Why would I give away such a closely guarded secret of the magic fraternity? Well, I'm hoping that you'll be so grateful to me that when the entire program is over, after we've done all of the giveaways, that you'll run right out to that table immediately outside those doors and avail yourself of some of the motivational tools there. There's first my book called The 12 Immutable Laws of Humor on how to be funny in front of a group of people. I took the 100 greatest jokes of all time and applied to them what I call the 12 things, 12 immutable laws of humor, the 12 things all funny people do. So you can learn to be funnier if you want to make your classes more interesting. If you don't need it, give it to your pastor. It'll spruce things up on Sunday morning. Okay. And then get a DVD of my PBS TV special, 90 minutes long, with a lot of the magic that you've seen here and a very powerful message on life's 5 most important attitudes. It's especially great for teenagers, but adults too. And then 3 audio CDs, how to have a great attitude at all times, with 5 qualities of a remarkably effective educator, more than we've done today, with a lot more material and another point that we didn't have time for. And then the 6 things you have to do to make a lasting change in your life. That used to be $68 on my website, but I'm cleaning out my garage. You can help. I've got thousands of these in my garage, and I'm going all to digital downloads, streaming, and stuff like that as soon as I get rid of this. So that whole stack for 20 bucks. So now you say, what? That whole stack for just $20? It gets better. If you want more, you can get a whole lot more than that. Almost everything I've ever produced on a jump drive for $20 for download to your iPod, your iPad, that sort of thing. 2 books. This is 1 book. There's actually 2 books on there now. Anyway, that's all back there. Or you can get my latest book, Megatubes, on life's 12 most important attitudes. Hopefully it will change your life. I'll be back there to autograph it eventually. And it's 15 bucks if you want that out there. So, how do you tear up a newspaper and put it back together? This is what you do. Get yourself a section of a newspaper. Page through it to show people that there's nothing in it. I use the USA Today because everyone knows there's nothing in it. What you will do is pretend to tear the paper without really tearing it. This is accomplished by pushing the right hand rapidly down, making a quarter turn to the right and a sweeping arc in that same direction. If you're left-handed, of course, just reverse it. Now, if you push the right hand down fast, quarter turn, sweeping arc in that direction, it will make it look like the paper tears. Didn't that look real? Yeah. Some of you are fooled already. But this is a folded sheet, and this is a folded sheet. When I paged through them, I took the center fold out and put it behind. Watch from the back. You can always catch a magician from the back. Down, quarter turn, sweeping arc in the same direction as the hand you're using to tear it. Watch right here. This is all misdirection. Did you catch it that time? Now some of you are saying, I thought I heard that paper tear. I'm very proud of that. I make that noise with my mouth. Watch my lips. They barely move. And with the 4th fake tear, try to create the illusion of ragged edges. Because if they're uneven, it's more realistic. And then on the final phony tear, make faces like they're tearing through 64 sheets of paper, which you would be doing had you actually torn it. Now I'm going to try something I do not want you to attempt at home. I am a professional. I'm going to pretend to hold a piece out to the side by itself, creating the illusion of separation. And read something. Bulldog for sale, will eat anything, loves children. Antique dresser for sale by lady with round bottom, thick legs, and large drawers. Wedding dress for sale, used only once by mistake. Illiterate, write today for a free brochure. Oh, here's a human interest story. Do you remember the television show The Little Rascals? Do you remember Buckwheat, a character parodied on Saturday Night Live by Eddie Murphy years ago? He's back in the news. According to this article, Buckwheat is 83 years old, if you can believe that, and has converted to Islam. Changed his name to Kareem of Wheat. And then you open the newspaper and you take your bows. Now, of course, there is no point in me opening the paper now that you know the secret that I never tore it in the first place. So, do take cash, check, and all major credit cards for the products, that whole stack for the jump drive, the book. What? You still do not believe? You are what magicians call septics. I can always smell a septic. You asked for it. Let's get a chant going. Do you believe in the newspaper trick? Say, I believe. Down like this. Let's get a chant going. You believe in the kids? You believe in the dream? You believe I never tore the paper?
Sit it out or dance. I hope you dance. I hope you dance. I hope you never fear those mountains in the distance. Never settle for the path of least resistance. Living might mean taking chances if they were taken. Loving might be a mistake, but it's worth making. Don't let some helping heart leave you bitter. When you come close to sun out, reconsider. Is it heaven but more than just a passing glance? And when you get the choice to sit it out or dance, I hope you dance. I hope you dance. I hope you dance. I hope you dance. I hope you still feel
Education this morning, Mr. Joe Swanson has some closing remarks for us.
To whom much is expected, many, many thanks and showers of gratitude are due. Thanks to everyone who shared in putting together this morning's program. Thanks to South Middle School and the staff for hosting our 2013 convocation. A special thanks to Danielle Crafton, Stephen Johnson, Cindy Williams, Sabrina Jewell and her staff, Kathy Jo Cruz, Rita Heron for your hours of planning and preparation, and for all the many others that you called upon to help you. A very special thanks to Mr. Billy Riggs. Let's give him a round of applause right now. Thank you, Mr. Riggs, for launching us on our path toward the magic of education for this school year. More importantly, Mr. Riggs, thank you for honoring our work and affirming us in the jobs that we do every day. For you see, we just go humbly into the classrooms and into the offices and wherever our duty workstations are to do the work for Henderson County students. To the Henderson County teachers and the supporting staff, the work you do is a special craft, a passion, even a special mission of high personal calling, and you do that each and every day, humbly and not thinking of yourself. Whether you're a teacher or a classified employee, no matter what your job or duty station is, whether you work at Thelma B. Johnson Early Learning Center, or whether you're a teacher at Henderson County High School, it is all important. And just as was said earlier, we each one own a piece of those ACT scores that we just got back. How about a round of applause for those? But even more importantly than those ATC scores, as important as they are, the inspiration and the education you give our children and our youth to prepare for a future that cannot be well described or even well imagined in today's terms. That's the important. The relationships that you cause each and every day, the hands you extend, the kind words, the words of encouragement, those attaboys, those are the words that are most important. As you step into the classrooms each morning with the capacity, realize that you have the capacity and the potential to change the lives of our precious children and thus change the world. You bring the magic of learning 175 days a year, not just one day. In you, Henderson County teachers and staff, lies the possibility, the opportunity to change the lives of 7,000 children. So beginning tomorrow, and for 175 days after that, and every day, enter your classrooms ready to teach like a champion. For if you change the course of even one life, that will make it all worth it. Go forth, God bless you, Henderson County staff. Go forth and teach like a champion every day. Thank you.